All right. Welcome everybody. So here we are. I'd like to just talk a bit about the microbiome and discuss a little bit of details and information that I've learned to help and benefit people who might be interested in upgrading their health and accessing a level of control over your biology. And so the amazing thing here is, and why this is so important and interesting to me, is that basically most of our body is made up of bacteria. So we have 90% bacteria within this living organism. I mean, even that in and of itself is just like, whoa, that's like a mind blow. Like, just blows my mind right off the bat. We're 90% bacteria. 10% of our body belongs to us. The rest belongs to these microbes. And so we're this is basically their stomping grounds. So like, this is their hood, you know? Like, so we basically want to get to a level of every meal that we eat, every behavior, every thought that we have takes into consideration the bacteria that we are hosting. And so it's really important to think about how we can benefit these bacteria, these beneficial bacteria, and keep that in a healthy ratio. So the thing is, most of our guts aren't in a healthy ratio. And there's like 4 or 5 different types of microbiomes within our system. But I'm talking mostly about the gut microbiome, and that obviously extrapolates and expands into the rest of the body. And that's the first and foremost way we're getting nutrients, and we're altering our microbiome daily. And you know, every meal is basically changing the way that our biology and the microbiology and all these living things inside of us, we're changing this ecosystem through different meals, whether we're consuming toxins or we're consuming food that the bacteria actually like, which are fibers, which are specifically FODMAPs, which are saccharides, oligosaccharides, polyols, disaccharides. So if you have a bad ratio, you're going to feed these bad bacteria by eating these certain types of FODMAPs, or fermentable fibers. So basically you want 80-20 good bad, or 85-15 good bad. And in that sense, you have like, your stomping grounds are like, your body feels stable and resilient, and you aren't susceptible to illness like other people are. So you feel more grounded and stable. So going back to this, like, basically when you eat fibers, our bodies don't digest fiber. Like, there's no way, we don't produce cellulase to break down the cellulose. So that's why the bacteria are here for us. By feeding them, they produce neurotransmitter precursors that travel through the vagal nerve into our brain and actually produce serotonin and GABA. And, you know, it's just amazing, because that creates a whole personality, behavior, thoughts, beliefs, generating a personality disposition based on the signals that are being sent from your gut. So it's insane. Like, this information just blew my mind. We have our central nervous system, which is parasympathetic and sympathetic, and then we have our enteric nervous system, which is comprised of our gut. So first and foremost, we have 80% of our immune system in our gut. So that's basically this tube that runs through us that's actually outside of our body. So every time we put information in, information being data through food or liquids, that being digested and having actually stop any kind of infection or possibility of invaders coming in. So that's why most of our immune system is located in the gut. So through the vagal nerve, and the connection between the enteric nervous system and our actual central nervous system it's such a strong connection, and that's why we have a gut reaction. That's why we go off of these feelings, because we feel initially this kind of like sense of knowingness, this intuition, and so that's why it's really important to listen to those feelings. The bacteria in our gut, they connect to each other. So if you think about it, before humans, before like we've evolved and like humans have, come to a place, or however you want to think about it, of existing here, basically bacteria were those were like the tribes. So we had like these different types of bacteria, and they were like evolving, like lacto-fermented bacteria. They evolved to be able to handle the acid or lactic acid produced. So that there's certain evolutionary like standpoints or aspects that the bacteria have been able to embody to be able to survive and to promote benefit and actual reason for them to be existing. So first and foremost, bacteria are so important because they make us up, and they actually are way better at communicating than humans. They're so good at communicating, which is called quorum sensing. And they actually, say you have bad bacteria in your gut, they can communicate effectively. If you're trying to kill them off, and you've got something going on, basically, like, hey, we've got some oregano oil coming down the hatch. You guys, hunker down into your biofilms so that you're safe for the evening. And that's quorum sensing. That's where these bacteria kind of send information back and forth, and they relate to each other, letting them know what other parts of the body, like status and situations. So it's so interesting. And when we start to realize that when we focus on like good bacteria and beneficial bacteria, how they can communicate and create such intense resilience within us that we can eat pizza or do things, 80% of the time we're either doing the things that are beneficial for us, and then 20% of the time we can go out and have a beer, or we can enjoy ourselves in other ways. And so it's really important to consider the implications of this. And they've done studies where, you've seen like rats who have the microbiome who's like very obese, rat, and their microbiome is a certain ratio where they have more firmicutes, which is a type of bacteria, and they have injected that microbiome into another rat who's actually skinny, and they actually change to an obese rat. So we've seen like a direct correlation between the microbiome of these rats. And I think something that's so interesting is that we can actually alter the microbiome within ourselves based on this information. So that rat might take on anxiety because of the certain microbiome disposition of its donor. So when you look at that, it's insane. Like this information that we receive through the bacteria in our gut, we can take on. So if you, I'm going to slow down for a sec because I'm getting really excited about that. But basically, these are FMTs, fecal matter transplants, and when we've seen these in scientific like experiments with rats, the rat that takes the donation from the obese rat, or vice versa, they take on those aspects. So it's not just physical, but it's also personality and disposition for emotionality. And you can obviously extrapolate that into mental thoughts and stuff. So, like for instance, if you have too much bad bacteria in your body, the bad bacteria produce toxins, and they produce tryptophanase. Tryptophanase is going to break down tryptophan, so you're not going to be able to actually produce serotonin. So you're not going to feel calm, relaxed, and you're not going to be able to enjoy life. And that's what I think is so interesting about all this, is that we are seeing like direct implications with scientific research as to how all this stuff works and how we can hack our biology and our microbiome to feel amazing. I'm not saying all the time, but most of the time, and feel good and have a stable biology and resilience to bacteria, pathogenic bacteria, or not being able to be so sensitive to disease or an infection. So that's what's really interesting about this. I've been really studying this stuff for the better part of my winter, and clip this for a sec. So yeah, what are we going to talk about? Basically, if you want to basically if you know you have dysbiosis, or if there's a part of your gut, or if you have any like digestive problems, not just digestion, but thinking about 90% of our body is made up of bacteria, probably your histamine issues, probably your brain fog, probably any memory stuff, because the brain is so connected to the gut. A lot of these issues like acne, there's anxiety. Anxiety is a big one, and that one was a big one for me. And so we're seeing these like huge correlations between tons of chronic illnesses and the gut microbiome. So if you know you have something that's kind of like keeping you off kilter for a while, you can do a great amount of a great amount of benefit to yourself by exploring the possibilities of upgrading your microbiome. And doing that through probiotics and doing that through fermented foods. And also prebiotics. Prebiotics are fibers that feed your beneficial bacteria. So before you go on to prebiotics or FODMAPs like I mentioned earlier, you're going to want to create a healthy ratio in your gut first. So if you don't have 80-20 or 85-15, you're going to want to kill off a good amount of these bacteria and then re-inoculate. And that can be like a serious process. So if anyone's interested in that, I can tell you details on how to do that. But it involves breaking down biofilms because they create these little sacs, and it's actually disgusting. Like these bacteria create these like environments so that they can't be killed. So you need to be able to like break those down with certain enzymes. EDTA, serapeptinase, all these different like prolytic enzymes, systemic enzymes, things that are going to break these down, and very astringent foods like cistus tea and apple cider vinegar, malic acid. So there's certain foods that do keep, on a regular basis, those microbiomes from not being built up. So you can go ahead and break those down, then you go in for the kill. Then you soothe, you have to rebuild the lining before you re-inoculate. So it's really important to do that with glutamine and zinc and all these other, bone broths and beneficial foods that are going to kind of like soothe the system. Because you can't build a mansion in the ghetto. You need to be able to like create an environment where these bacteria are going to want to live when you re-inoculate. So I want to jump into types of bacteria. And different types of bacteria have different properties. So this is like so fascinating to me, and I'm probably just gonna geek out on here for a minute. But like, if anyone's like really into this, like definitely reach out and let me know, because like I love this stuff. And so basically, we have different types of bacteria. We're talking beneficial bacteria now. So you want to like create a cornerstone, like, so you don't want to just like throw in like all these random bacteria. You want like your body to be able to start to create this itself. So you want to use like cornerstone types strains that are going to be able to set the stage for all these other bacteria to be able to propagate. And so those are Lactobacillus acidophilus. That's probably the most well-known one, which are most common in yogurts and fermented foods. And then you have your bifidobacterium, Bifidobacterium longum. There's bifidobacteria, I forget the other one, but there's what's the other one? Lactobacillus rhamnosus. This is a really nice one because it actually has a direct effect to GABA production. So that's like a psychobiotic that they're actually talking about now, is Lactobacillus rhamnosus. Bifidobacterium longum, that's the one. Longum, rhamnosus, and plantarum. These are like cornerstones to your gut microbiome. Before you start introducing SBOs, which are soil-based organisms, those are kind of things that are found in your garden, on your fruits and vegetables. Amazing stuff, and it's good to get those in, but if your gut's compromised in any way and you have any reaction introducing some of these basic bacteria, you're going to want to stay from the SBOs first, and then go for the main 4 or the main 4 or 5. So basically, that's really the thick of it, like the most interesting stuff that I've come across I do want to touch on one other thing that I feel like is, I haven't like fully researched this stuff, and there's definitely a lot of, you know, there isn't that much information on it, but I've heard some really cool stuff about this, and that is, so imagine you're a computer. So you have, say you have a Mac and you have Time Machine, and you hook that Mac Time Machine up to an external hard drive. That external hard drive takes snapshots of your computer and all the files on it and the way everything looked, including your desktop background, everything. And that's taking all the information and consolidating it into a single file and saying, hey, this is your computer on August 22nd or May 10th or whatever it is. And so you have this catalog of information of every part of your computer on all these different days. So you can like snap back, like, oh, what was I looking at? What was my computer like on this day? How did it feel? What was the workflow like? Were things cleaned up, you know? So you consider all the implications of being able to take a snapshot of your computer and then go back and say, this is the computer on this day. All right, so let's go back to the microbiome and look at how that's related to it. So if we go back to FMTs, fecal matter transplants, which is kind of like the most ridiculous, it's actually a very effective technique. So we found like people are complete remission from IBS and all these certain conditions. And like I said, you want to know your donor very well because you're going to take on some of the characteristics of their microbiome, which affects your entire biology. But basically, with an MMT transplant, which are insanely effective, you can actually, this is really weird, like how low tech can you get by eating a capsule of someone else's shit? You know, this is like really ridiculous, but the implications of this is insane, you know? So comparing that to a time machine analogy is, say, you know, and I'm not saying do this right now, but like I'm just saying that this information's out there, and like we're starting to look into the implications of what we can actually do with our microbiome and hack our biology to feel the best ever. So basically, if you say you're feeling really good right now, like you're like, I've been feeling amazing for like months and months and months. Like I don't have any like issues, like I used to have issues, or I haven't had issues. That's great. So maybe it'd be smart to take a sample of your microbiome and take a snapshot of it, take a couple capsules and put it in the freezer and date it and describe how you felt. And then you can do that. You can create your own time machine that you keep in your own personal vault, and make sure you label them very well. And say, like, you know, 5-10 months down the road, you're like, I ate something or something happened, or I haven't been like getting enough rest, or my body doesn't feel like it used to. Let me like backtrack and actually like re-inoculate with the bacteria that I used to have and reset my microbiome based on this time that I was feeling really good. So I thought that was amazing. Like, this is just insane. So we're able to like start to see like where we could go with this. So it doesn't hurt, you know, if you're feeling really good, like take a sample and, you know, keep it for your own interests later on. You don't have to do anything with it. You might want to do something with it. Who knows? But like, that's something that's really interesting that I wanted to share. So take advantage of this information, look into it. There's some really interesting stuff out there, and more or less in here. So inside your body is a big ecology of a ecosystem of bacteria that you want to cultivate and propagate. And when you get it to a nice point where there's a good ratio and you're feeling pretty good, you're going to want to take fibers and create which is called terraforming inside your body. So you're going to like start to propagate these beneficial bacteria, and they're going to be able to really hold the ground and keep you resilient. For instance, if you know someone who is super skinny and all they do is eat pizza or drink beer, or they barely exercise and they're just always like super skinny, or compared to the person who is kind of overweight or obese and they eat a salad and they gain weight. You know, these are genetic dispositions, but I would also, you know, like to submit that they are actually microbiome dispositions. And if most of our body is made up of bacteria, namely 90%, that's going to have a big impact on the way we feel, the way we look, and our emotional and mental state. So consider the implications of treating your body like a terraforming ecosystem of wonderful bacteria that we can propagate to the benefit of being an awesome host. How can I be a host to the party of my bacteria, my microbiome? What would you guys like? What would you love to be enjoying for your hors d'oeuvres and your main course, you know? They're talking about fermentable fibers, cellulose, things that they can enjoy, and certain different fermentable fibers are going to feed different types of bacteria, which are going to produce different types of minerals. They're going to produce B12. Certain bacteria are going to produce GABA precursors. They're going to produce serotonin precursors. So, and these are inhibitory neurotransmitters. So they're actually going to help you relax, and they're going to work in inverse from acetylcholine and dopamine. So if you're feeling a little bit like on a dopamine high, or you're kind of like going, you know, super stressed out, this might be a great solution for you, just to start moving towards fermented foods and beneficial probiotics and looking at prebiotic fibers. So one of the best ways to do that is, most of us, say you know have vegetables in your fridge, you probably have about 5 or 6 or 7 different species of vegetables, unless you're like a raw foodist and really into vegetables. But most of us don't even have that much. So you have like lettuce, asparagus, red peppers, yams. That's probably about it, you know. Maybe a couple more things, but if we're talking 25 to 30 different types of species that are all based in different types of fibers that break down and feed all these different types of bacteria. On a side note, microdiversity, these bacteria, the diversity of these bacteria is key. So we don't just want like 4 or 5 of them, we want a whole diversity. So bridging that information, they can help us out so much more. So it's really important to be able to feed them with a variety of prebiotic fibers. And so the best way to do that, and what I'm really excited to start doing, is to create a sofrito, so this kind of like very tasty base for food. So if you ever had like a Spanish sofrito with like green peppers, garlic, onion, you can start there, but make this microbiome sofrito. So it's like you have garlic, onion, dandelion, kale, asparagus, jicama, yams. You can go down this like road of prebiotic fibers and start to cut them into very small pieces, mince them up. If you can even blend them, you can create this paste that you can put on your skillet, your cast iron in the morning, oil it up, put some spices on there. You've got this great kind of like basis for whatever you're cooking for that meal, and you're going to be able to create this wonderful prebiotic kind of like delicious meal for all these bacteria. You kind of like think of like, how can I bring my microbiome to the spa? You know, like if I'm living for like these microbiome creatures, like how can I like treat them the best ever? Because they're going to make me feel amazing, and they're going to take my health to the next level. So yeah, I could keep going on this, but I think I'm going to stop the video and go for a walk or something. But if anyone's interested, please leave a comment. I'd love to do more of these videos. And if anyone's interested or has questions, I'd love to share, like work with you, if, you know, just blessings, you know, for whatever. Like I'm not even interested in money or whatever, but just like sharing this information. And if anyone wants to like go for it and just like, hey, like how can I like restructure my microbiome? I've been having like gut issues, or I have psoriasis or acne or acid reflux, or, you know, abdominal cramping or brain fog or headaches, or I'm just feeling anxious or stressed out all the time, you know, any of these things. I mean, we could hack this stuff and just start working on this stuff right away. So reach out, and I'll do future videos. So shoot me a comment, a question that you'd like me to answer. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. I will see you guys soon. Take care.